The wedding had ended, but silence ruled the palace that night. Music faded, torches dimmed, and the city outside slept uneasy under the weight of new destiny. The nobles had bowed, but their eyes still burned with hidden fire. The council had obeyed, but their whispers carried venom. And the human, once ordinary, once nameless, now stood in the center of a storm that would shape galaxies. He sat alone in a vast chamber, his reflection trembling in the silver floor. Robes of silk weighed heavy on his shoulders. A crown rested nearby, untouched. He looked at his hands, rough from labor, scarred from trial, yet now marked by golden chains of light that bound him to the Empress. He whispered to himself, "All I wanted was food. All I wanted was a snack." But the stars had heard differently, and the stars had answered with fate. The doors opened without a sound, and she entered. The Empress, radiant even in shadow, her violet eyes glowing softly in the dim light. Her gown flowed like liquid night, her crown dimmed, yet still alive with shifting stars. She walked to him slowly, her presence filling the chamber before her voice did. "You carry the weight well, for one who never asked for it," she said. He lifted his eyes to her, confusion and frustration sharp in his voice. "Why me? Why not one of your own? Why not a warrior, a prince, a leader?" The Empress paused, her gaze steady, her tone quiet but firm. "Because warriors fight for glory, princes fight for power, leaders fight for ambition. But you, human, you fought for life itself, and life is what this galaxy needs." Her words struck him deeper than any blade. He thought of the arena, of the beast, of the fire that nearly killed him. He had not fought for honor. He had not fought for her. He had fought simply to live. And yet that simple act had carried a weight greater than he understood. The council stormed the chamber the next morning, their cloaks flaring like wings of shadow. They bowed, but their voices trembled with anger. "Majesty, this union cannot stand. The galaxy will rebel. The throne will fracture," one hissed. "He is nothing, a worker, a mistake, a danger to tradition," another spat. But the Empress rose, her hand raised, her voice stronger than the clash of their protests. "Tradition bends to survival, law bends to truth, and the throne bends to me," she declared. Then she turned her gaze upon him, sharp and unwavering. "And now it bends to us." The council fell silent, their defeat written in their lowered heads. The nobles whispered in fear, the soldiers watched in awe. The Empress extended her hand to him once more, not as command but as choice. For the first time, he did not hesitate. His hand rose and joined hers. The chains of golden light reappeared, brighter, stronger, as if fed by his decision. The hall itself seemed to tremble, the stars above the palace flickered, and the galaxy knew the bond was no longer an accident, it was real. He had begun as nothing, a hungry man searching for food. Now he stood crowned as consort to the Empress of the galaxy, from the lowest dock of a colony to the highest throne among the stars. The journey was beyond reason, beyond imagination, beyond refusal. And though fear still lived in his chest, so too did something new, something fierce. The Empress looked at him, her voice softer now, a whisper meant only for him. "The stars will test us, the worlds will resist us, but together, we will break or we will rise." He nodded slowly, the weight settling on his shoulders like a cloak of fire. For the first time, he did not whisper about food. He did not wish for escape. He stood tall beside her, and the hall filled with the sight of a human on the throne of stars. Outside, the city roared, some in celebration, some in fury, but all in disbelief. Stories spread faster than fire, from ship to ship, from planet to planet. The human who married the Empress, they whispered. The worker who became a king, others said. And some simply called him what he had always been, a man who only wanted a snack. But destiny had no humor, and destiny had no mercy. What began with hunger had ended with a throne. And as the Empress took his hand, guiding him into the storm of the galaxy, he knew this was not the end of his story. It was only the beginning. The trial had ended, but the echoes of it still shook the city. The arena had burned with fire, the beast had fallen, and the humans still stood. Some called it fate, others called it madness, but none could deny what they had seen. He was no longer just a stranger, he was now the one chosen by the token, and proven by the trial. The Empress did not waste time. Her voice echoed through the council chambers that very night. "The law has spoken. The bond will be honored. Prepare for the union," she commanded. Her words spread across the capital like fire through dry grass. Nobles whispered in fear, soldiers muttered in disbelief, and common people sang in wonder. The galaxy itself trembled with the news. The Empress of 1,000 worlds would marry a human. The palace transformed, halls filled with glowing banners of silver and violet. Musicians from distant stars arrived, carrying instruments shaped from crystal and flame. Chefs prepared dishes that floated in the air, steaming with impossible colors. Jewels were hung on every wall, light pouring from them like rivers. The city outside lit its towers with torches that burned blue and gold. It was not just a wedding, it was a spectacle for the galaxy to witness. And yet the human felt none of the joy, none of the glory. He walked the palace corridors in silence, his heart heavy, his mind restless. He thought of the simple snack he had wanted, the ordinary night he had left behind. Now he was being dressed in robes woven from alien silk, fitted with rings that pulsed faintly with light. Servants bowed before him, but their eyes hid both fear and judgment. He whispered to himself, "This is not my life. This was never supposed to be." The day of the ceremony came. The throne chamber transformed into a temple of light. Pillars glowed with fire drawn from the stars. The ceiling shimmered with constellations alive. The nobles filled the chamber, their faces sharp with suspicion, their whispers sharper still. The council sat in shadow, their eyes burning with anger they dared not speak. And at the center, the Empress stood, radiant as the dawn. Her gown shimmered with silver threads. Her crown burned brighter than ever. She looked untouchable, unshakable, and yet her eyes searched for him. He was led forward, every step heavier than the last. The voices of the crowd fell into silence as he stopped before her. The air was thick, filled with the weight of worlds. The priest of the court lifted his hands, his voice ringing with ritual. By token, by trial, by law and by star, two become one, bound forevermore. The Empress raised her hand, offering it to him. Her violet eyes never wavered, her expression unreadable. For a heartbeat he froze, his thoughts screaming to run, to refuse. But all around him the galaxy waited, watching. The council glared, the nobles leaned forward, the people held their breath. And slowly, unwillingly, his hand lifted and touched hers. A light burst from their joined hands, blinding and warm. It spread through the chamber, climbing the walls, reaching the ceiling. Symbols of fire and starlight swirled in the air, weaving themselves into chains of gold. The bond was sealed, the law fulfilled, the union undeniable. The crowd roared, some with joy, many with rage, but none could undo it. The Empress turned to face them all. Her voice thundered through the hall. "Behold, your Empress and her chosen consort, bound by fate, proven by trial, sealed by law." Her words silenced even the angriest voices, though their eyes still burned with resistance. She smiled faintly, though her gaze carried the weight of a storm. And in that moment, the human realized something terrifying. This was not simply a marriage, it was a declaration of war against tradition. By taking his hand, the Empress had defied her council, shaken her nobles, and challenged the galaxy itself. As the music rose and the hall filled with forced celebration, he leaned closer to her, his voice low, trembling. "Why are you doing this? Why me?" he asked. The Empress's lips curved into a mysterious smile, her voice barely a whisper. "Because destiny is not about what we want, human, it is about what the stars demand." Her words echoed inside him like thunder. And though the hall cheered and the galaxy watched, he felt no victory. He felt only the shadow of what was coming. The wedding of worlds had begun, but the storm of consequences was only just awakening. The dawn rose cold and sharp over the city of towers. From the highest balcony of the palace, banners of silver and violet rippled in the wind. The drums from the night before now thundered louder, steady and merciless. The entire capital had gathered, nobles in jeweled robes, soldiers in polished armor, and crowds that filled every street. All of them waiting for one thing, to watch the trial of the human. He was led through winding corridors until the air grew heavy with heat and dust. The guards pushed open great iron gates, and light spilled in like fire. Before him stretched the arena, a circle of stone carved deep into the heart of the palace. The floor shimmered with glowing sand, its grains alive with hidden energy. Above, the stands roared with alien voices, layered, strange, and deafening. The human swallowed hard, his throat dry. He felt their eyes on him, thousands of eyes, sharp, cold, hungry for spectacle. He whispered to himself, "I don't belong here. I don't belong in any of this." But the guards gave no answer. They simply shoved him forward, leaving him in the center of the arena. Then the gates on the far side opened with a screech. From the shadows emerged a beast unlike anything he had ever seen. It stood on 4 limbs thick as stone pillars, its body covered in scales that glowed faintly blue. 2 horns curved from its head like blades, and its mouth dripped with fire. The crowd roared, chanting in alien tongues, calling for blood, calling for the end of the human. Fear froze his body. His legs wanted to run, his arms wanted to fold in surrender. But deep inside, something stirred, something older than fear. He thought of the Empress's eyes, steady, searching, almost waiting. He thought of the words she had spoken, destiny. And for the first time since this nightmare began, he clenched his fists instead of trembling. The beast roared. The ground shook under its charge. Sand flew as its claws tore into the earth, its eyes blazing with fury. The human dodged, barely, his body moving faster than his mind. He stumbled, rolled, and felt the heat of its fire scorch the air above his head. The crowd gasped, expecting him to be crushed instantly, yet he stood again, shaking but alive. Around the arena, weapons of past trials lay buried beneath the sand. He noticed the glint of metal near his foot, a broken spear half buried. He grabbed it, its shaft cracked, its tip dull, but it was better than empty hands. The beast turned, growling, its chest swelling with fire. He raised the spear, his heart pounding, and whispered, "Come on then." The clash was chaos, fire against fragile flesh, claws against cracked wood. Each strike pushed him closer to the edge, each dodge drained the last of his strength. Yet every time he fell, he rose again, his body bruised, his arms burning. The nobles leaned forward, whispers rising, shock growing that he had not yet fallen. At last, with one desperate move, he drove the broken spear into the beast's side. It roared, thrashing, fire spilling wild across the arena. He was thrown to the ground, his chest aching, his body broken. But the beast staggered, its fire choking into smoke, its body collapsing into the sand. The arena fell into silence, then erupted into thunder. Some shouted in fury, "Impossible, trickery, this cannot be." Others shouted in awe. He fought, he stood, he endured. But above them all, the Empress rose from her throne, her violet eyes fixed on him. Her lips curved into the faintest smile, a smile that silenced every voice. She lifted her hand, and the drums stopped as if cut by a blade. The human stood in the center, breathing hard, covered in dust and sweat. He looked up at her, unsure if he had won or only delayed his death. Her voice carried across the arena, clear and unshakable. He has faced the trial, he has endured the fire, and he still stands. The nobles bowed their heads, the council's eyes darkened, but none dared to speak. The Empress's smile deepened, though her gaze was sharp with hidden meaning. "You are not a mistake. Human, you are proof," she said. Her words burned through him, heavier than the fire of the beast. The crowd chanted louder, half in anger, half in awe. But he heard only her voice, echoing in his mind. "You are proof." And as he stood there, bloodied yet alive, he realized something terrifying. He was no longer just a man who wanted food. He was becoming part of a story that belonged to the stars themselves. The night passed slowly, though he barely slept. Visions of violet eyes and silver crowns haunted him. He replayed her words again and again. "You are bound to me." But how could hunger bind a man to an empress? How could a mistake be called destiny? When the first light of dawn touched the palace towers, the guards came for him. Their armor glowed under the rising suns, their weapons humming softly. They led him through winding halls until he reached the throne chamber once more. But this time the chamber was not silent, it was alive with voices. Alien nobles filled the hall, their robes trailing like rivers. Some had wings folded tight against their backs. Others shimmered like living crystal. They whispered behind jeweled hands, eyes sharp with judgment and disbelief. A human, one hissed, unworthy. Another spat, unthinkable. But curiosity flickered beneath their disgust. They had come to see fate unfold. The Empress sat high upon the throne of stars, her crown burning brighter than ever. She did not look at the crowd. She did not look at the council. She looked only at him. Her voice carried over the hall, soft yet commanding. By law, the one who touches the token stands as my chosen. By right, he is to be joined to me. The crowd erupted, voices clashing like swords. Impossible, they shouted. Blasphemy, others cried. The council rose, their hoods shifting, their hands glowing faintly as if ready to fight. One counselor stepped forward, his tone bitter, his golden eyes burning. Your Majesty, the galaxy will not accept this. A human cannot share your throne. It is a disgrace to every world under your rule. The Empress raised her hand, and silence fell like a blade. Her eyes narrowed, her voice sharper now. Law is not disgrace, law is law, and I am the law of this galaxy. Her words cracked through the hall like thunder, silencing even the boldest voices. The human's chest tightened, his heart pounded. He wanted to shout, to deny, to escape. He stumbled forward, his voice desperate. I don't want this. I didn't choose this. I only wanted food. I only wanted a snack. The nobles laughed, cruel laughter that echoed in the chamber. But the Empress silenced them with a single glance. She rose from the throne, her gown flowing like a river of silver fire. Step by step, she descended toward him, each movement deliberate, each pause filled with weight. When she stood before him, she lifted her hand, and the crowd held its breath. Her fingers brushed lightly against the glowing mark still faintly burning on his palm where the fruit had touched. Her voice was quiet, meant only for him, yet the whole chamber seemed to lean in to hear. You may not choose, human, but the galaxy already has. He shook his head violently, stepping back. This is madness. I'm no prince, no warrior. I'm just a worker, just a man. But her eyes softened, not with pity but with certainty. Perhaps, she whispered, or perhaps you are more than you know. The counselor shouted again, desperate now? Then let him prove it. Let him face the trial of worth. Let the galaxy decide if this mistake deserves to live. Murmurs rippled through the nobles, some nodding, some grinning with cruel delight. The Empress turned slowly, her violet eyes narrowing. Very well, she said, her voice like steel wrapped in silk. He will face the trial. The human's blood turned cold, his stomach knotted. He wanted to protest, but the Empress raised her hand again, silencing him as easily as she had silenced the hall. Tomorrow, before all, you will stand in the arena, she declared. If you survive, none may question the bond. If you fall, your body will prove their doubts true. The crowd roared, half in approval, half in bloodthirsty excitement. The guards stepped forward to seize him again, but the Empress raised her hand once more. Not chains, she said firmly. Let him walk freely, for his steps are now steps of destiny. And so the guards bowed and stepped back, though their eyes never left him. The human stood trembling in the center of the throne chamber. The nobles stared at him with hatred, the council with suspicion. But the Empress looked at him as if she saw something even he could not see. Her final words rang across the chamber, heavy as the weight of worlds. From hunger you came to me, from trial you may rise to me. But one way or another, your fate is sealed. And as the guards escorted him out, he knew that tomorrow would decide everything. The snack that had started as a simple craving was now pulling him toward the jaws of death. And perhaps, toward something even greater. The palace never truly slept. Its walls glowed with hidden energy. Its towers hummed with life. Yet in the throne chamber, silence ruled, a silence heavy and sharp. The human was brought once again into the hall of silver steps, his arms bound by chains that glimmered faintly. The guards pushed him forward, their faces unreadable behind polished masks. He stumbled, caught himself, and raised his eyes, and there she was. The Empress sat on the throne of stars, her figure radiant under the beams of light that poured through crystal arches. Her gown flowed like liquid silver, each thread shining, as if stitched from fragments of starlight. Her crown pulsed with shifting colors, alive, like it was carved from a nebula itself. But it was her eyes that held him frozen, deep violet, glowing softly, steady as if they could pierce every thought he had ever carried. He had seen beauty before, but nothing like this, beauty mixed with danger, with power, with the certainty of command. The council lined the edges of the chamber, their heads bowed low, their voices silent in her presence. Every soldier stood still, as if carved from stone, waiting for her breath, her word, her will. And she spoke, her voice soft but filling the chamber like music of another world. "The stranger who touched the token stands before me," she said. Her gaze never left him. Each word fell heavy, sharp as the edge of a blade. "Speak. Human, tell me why you dared to claim what belongs to the Empress of the galaxy." His mouth went dry, his thoughts scattered. He wanted to shout that he had done nothing wrong, that he had not claimed anything, that it had only been hunger. But the weight of her eyes crushed every excuse, every protest. Finally he managed, his voice breaking. "I didn't know. I was just hungry. I didn't mean to take anything sacred." Whispers stirred among the council, a low hiss, disbelief mixed with scorn. One of them stepped forward, his hood slipping enough to reveal pale gray skin and sharp golden eyes. "Lies," the counselor hissed. "The token never falls to accident. It never chooses by mistake." The Empress raised her hand, and silence returned. "Perhaps," she said softly, "or perhaps fate is stranger than we imagine." Her lips curved into the faintest smile, but her eyes remained unreadable. She leaned forward on the throne, her silver gown shifting like flowing water. "Do you know what it means, human, to hold the token in your hands?" she asked. He shook his head quickly. "No, I don't. I swear I don't." Her voice lowered, almost like a whisper, yet clear to all. "It means you have claimed the ancient right. It means you have called upon the law of union. It means you are bound to me." The words struck like thunder. The hall seemed to tremble with them. Gasps rose from the council. Soldiers glanced at each other with shock. Bound to her, married to her, the Empress of the galaxy. His stomach turned, his mind spun. It was impossible, insane, beyond reason. He stumbled back, shaking his head. "No, this is a mistake. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want this." The Empress stood, her presence towering, her shadow stretching across the chamber like wings. Her steps echoed slowly as she descended the silver stairs, each step deliberate, each step final. She stopped before him, so close he could feel the faint warmth of her glow. Her hand rose, not in anger but in calm command. Her fingers brushed the air near his face, and in that moment, the chains around his arms dissolved into light. "You may deny it," she said, "but the galaxy does not." Her eyes locked onto his, and he felt as if the universe itself had been poured into him. A storm of stars, a weight of centuries, and yet a softness beneath it all. He could not breathe. He could not move, trapped between terror and awe. The counselor stepped forward again, his voice trembling. "Your Majesty, this cannot be allowed. A human cannot stand as consort. It will break tradition. It will bring chaos." The Empress turned her gaze upon him, and the counselor's voice died instantly. "Tradition is mine to command," she said coldly, "and chaos is mine to shape." The hall fell silent once more. The human's heart pounded like thunder in his chest. The Empress looked back at him, her smile softening just enough to carry mystery. "Tomorrow you will be tested, human," she said, "not for my amusement, but for the galaxy's judgment." Her words curled in the air like prophecy, final and inescapable. The guards stepped forward once again, but this time they did not chain him. They only bowed before her command and guided him out of the chamber. His steps were heavy, his mind lost, but one thought clung to him. He had only wanted a snack, and now he was chained to destiny. The guards did not loosen their grip. Their armored hands pressed hard against his shoulders as they dragged him across the shining floor. He tried to pull free, but their strength was beyond human. Each step he took was forced, his boots scraping against the crystal tiles. Behind him, the heavy palace doors shut with a thunderous sound, cutting him off from the marketplace and any chance of escape. The silence that followed was worse than the noise of the crowd. Every echo of his breath felt like a trespass in the endless hall. His mind spun with confusion. All this chaos for a piece of fruit, all this anger for a simple snack. It made no sense, yet the whispers of the crowd still burned in his memory. Sacred token, they had called it. Words that sounded like law, words that carried fear. But how could food be sacred? How could hunger be a crime? The guards said nothing, their faces hidden under smooth masks of silver, their eyes glowing faintly through narrow slits. Each movement was cold, precise, as if they were not living soldiers but machines built to serve the throne. Finally, they stopped at another set of doors, tall and dark, covered in alien symbols that pulsed with faint blue light. The guards pressed their weapons into the ground, and the doors opened by themselves with a hiss. The room inside was smaller, yet no less grand, its walls lined with floating crystals that hummed with energy. A circular table of black stone stood in the center. Around it sat figures cloaked in deep colors, their faces hidden beneath hoods. Their voices rose in a strange chant, sharp syllables, ancient and heavy, echoing through the chamber like a storm contained within walls. The human was pushed forward, his knees struck the stone floor. He winced, but no one offered mercy. One of the hooded figures spoke in a voice low and rasping. "The token has chosen." Another answered, "And the law must be fulfilled." The guards stepped back, but kept their weapons ready, as if expecting him to resist. He looked up at the shadowed council, his voice trembling. "I didn't choose anything. I just wanted food. I didn't mean." Silence. The hooded figure thundered, the sound so loud it rattled the crystals in the air. "By touching the fruit, you bound yourself to the ancient rite. You stand accused not of theft, but of claiming the hand of the Empress." His blood ran cold. The words struck like a blow. Married. To the Empress, the most powerful being in the galaxy. The thought was so wild, so absurd, that his body froze in disbelief. He laughed nervously, shaking his head. "No, you're wrong. This is a mistake. I didn't even know what it was." But the council ignored his pleas, their chants rising again, their hands glowing with light as symbols formed in the air above him. Golden patterns twisted into circles, lines, and stars, floating above his head like a cage of fire. He tried to stand, but the energy pressed down on him, forcing him back to his knees. The Empress's voice broke through the chanting like a blade. "Enough," she commanded, her tone soft yet sharp enough to cut through stone. The chanting stopped, the symbols vanished, the council lowered their heads in submission. The guards stepped aside as the Empress entered the chamber, her footsteps silent yet full of weight. Her gaze fell upon the human, her violet eyes calm but burning with strange fire. "You speak of hunger," she said slowly. "But hunger is not enough to move fate. The token does not choose at random. It answers only to destiny." He stared back at her, heart pounding. Destiny, he thought. He had never believed in such things, never thought his small life could touch something so vast. Yet here he was, kneeling before the Empress, surrounded by warriors and sorcerers, with the whole galaxy watching unseen. He shook his head again, his voice breaking. "I'm just a man, a worker. I'm no one important, why me?" The Empress tilted her head, her lips curling into a faint smile, though her eyes remained unreadable. "Why you?" she repeated softly, almost as if she was asking herself. Then she turned to the council, her voice sharp again. "The trial begins at dawn." The council bowed, their cloaks sweeping across the floor. The guards grabbed his arms once more, dragging him from the chamber. He struggled, demanding answers, demanding freedom, but his words were swallowed by the vast halls. Through narrow windows, he saw the twin moons rising over the alien city, their silver light painting the world in cold fire. Somewhere in the distance, drums began to beat, a sound that grew louder with every step. It was not celebration, it was not warning, it was the sound of a ritual being prepared. And he realized with dread that this was no mistake, no misunderstanding. By morning, he would face whatever trial the Empress had chosen, and his life, once so simple, would never belong to him again. The night on the human colony was calm, but hunger can disturb even the calmest night. He was an ordinary young man, nothing special in his own eyes, nothing great in the eyes of others. After a long day of work in the docking bay, his stomach reminded him that he had forgotten dinner. So, He decided to take a small walk into the marketplace, just to buy a snack, nothing more. The interstellar bazaar was never quiet, even at this hour. Neon signs glowed above the stalls, written in languages he did not understand. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved between the rows of food vendors. Some had scales that shimmered under the lights. Others had glowing eyes. Some floated instead of walking. But to him, it was just another night, and all he wanted was something small to eat. He passed stalls selling strange fruits that smelled sweet and dangerous. He saw glowing breads that steamed with blue mist. There were fried insects from worlds he had never heard of, and soups that boiled without fire, releasing a golden scent in the air. But then his eyes stopped at a small glowing crystal fruit on one stall. It looked simple, shining softly, as if calling to him. He thought, maybe this was perfect, maybe this was just the snack he needed. He reached out his hand and picked it up. The stall owner, a thin alien with long fingers and eyes like mirrors, froze in shock. The alien's lips trembled, and a hiss escaped his throat. Other aliens nearby gasped, their voices rising like a wave. Some whispered, some pointed, some even stepped back. He looked around, confused, holding the glowing fruit in his palm. "What? I only wanted a snack," he said in a quiet voice. But no one answered, no one laughed, no one explained. Instead, heavy steps echoed behind him. Armored guards with glowing spears pushed through the crowd. Their helmets reflected the neon lights, their faces hidden. One of them shouted in a deep, mechanical voice, "He has touched the sacred token." The words felt strange, heavy, but the crowd repeated them in fear. Sacred token, they whispered. He frowned, still not understanding. "It's just a piece of fruit. I was hungry," he said. But the guards did not listen. Strong hands grabbed his arms, twisting them behind his back. The glowing fruit was taken from him and carried on a silver tray. The marketplace fell into silence, every alien staring at him as if he had committed a crime too great to forgive. Dragged through the streets, he felt his feet stumble on the shining tiles. Shadows of alien towers rose above him, their windows glowing like watchful eyes. The guards said nothing, their grip unshaking. He tried to speak, tried to argue, but his voice was lost in the empty road. Soon, they reached a gate taller than anything he had ever seen. Made of black stone with silver lines, it pulsed as if alive. The gate opened with a low hum, and inside was a palace of light. Walls carved from crystal, floors reflecting his own face like a mirror. Every corner of the hall shone with alien fire. He was forced forward, deeper and deeper. Past glowing statues of kings and queens with alien features. Past soldiers lined in silver armor, their eyes watching him. The silence grew heavier, until the hall itself seemed to breathe. At last, they entered the throne room. The air was colder here, filled with power and command. At the end of the hall, raised on steps of silver, was the throne. And on that throne sat the one they called Empress. Her presence filled the room, even before he saw her clearly. Her hair shone like strands of light, flowing down her shoulders. Her eyes were deep violet, glowing softly as if holding secrets older than stars. She wore a crown that seemed alive, shifting and shimmering. Her gown was woven from silver threads, moving like water. She looked not just like a ruler, but like something more, something untouchable. And yet her gaze was fixed on him, only him. The guards pushed him to his knees. His heart pounded, his breath shallow. He whispered again, "I only wanted a snack." The words echoed through the great chamber. The Empress raised her hand, and silence fell. Her voice was soft, but carried across the hall. "You have taken what was never meant for mortal hands," she said. He blinked, still lost, still hungry, still confused. "I don't understand," he said, his voice shaking. But the Empress's lips curved in a strange, knowing smile. "You soon will," she whispered. And in that moment, his ordinary life ended. The man who only wanted a snack was now caught in a destiny greater than anything he had imagined. The Empress of the galaxy had noticed him, and nothing would ever be the same again.